Thank you very much, and I appreciate the business school actually having me here today, and I appreciate everyone here. It looks like there's not an empty seat in the house. So I'll try and go through today and actually explain what it is that he just said in the introduction of what I do and what my background is, and hopefully the relevancy to those of you sitting in the audience today. Okay, so the agenda that I've put together today looks like this. I'm going to give you a little bit of background about myself and perspective about the industry and the topic that I'm talking about today, which is business management software. Talk about the definition, talk about the markets in which this software plays, try and provide some examples to you. Try and hone in on the purpose of business management software in businesses today. Talk about selection and acquiring and purchasing of the right software for the buyers, for the companies who need new business management software in their companies, and what to expect when a business actually goes out and then deploys or implements business management software. And then we'll wrap up and hopefully get some good dialogue going with Q&A. I'd like to be able to make it interactive toward the end and answer any questions that you may have. So first, just a little bit of my background, because I'm in this hybrid industry. I work a lot with accounting, I work a lot with business processes, I work a lot with people, and I work with computers. And as we said earlier, we had some technical difficulties setting it up. But that's not really the key part of how my skill set was brought to what I do today. But in high school, most of my part-time jobs were actually in bookkeeping. My dad was actually a CPA. But when I went to college, I actually decided I wasn't going to go down the accounting road, largely because I was a rebellious teenager, and I had been doing accounting and exposed to accounting and tax returns up to that point in time, but decided I didn't want to go there. So I actually majored in sociology, which I will tell you gave me an excellent background for a lot of what I do today with organizations and working with people. But I did minor in business administration, so it wasn't all that crazy. I knew that I had that aptitude, that skill set, so I kept that going. And then in 1984, I actually started assisting small businesses with personal computers. Prior to that, I had actually worked in human resources. I knew, again, that I always wanted to work with people. And so I thought that I was going to spend most of my career in human resources. But I found myself working with computers. I went back to get my master's in business administration. I actually didn't get my MBA. I actually got my master's of science in business, and I specialized in industrial relations, which was all that I could do at that time in 1985 in thinking that I wanted to be in human resources. So at that time, there really wasn't a specialization in the business school in human resources. So I was still focusing on human resources and working with people. But I found myself working with computers during that time. And what I was doing was actually working with people and computers in small businesses. So fast forward to 1990, and I co-founded basically a small business to help small businesses and to help small businesses meet their goals. So business management software, which I'll talk continuously about today, a general definition, okay, is generally any software program that helps a business measure and increase their productivity. Okay? The term covers a large variety of different types of software, different uses within the business environment and across many different industries. And so we'll talk about some of those today. In relation to that, I just wanted to put our mission statement at Blytheco up for you because it does relate. We partner with our valued clients to help realize our business goals by providing quality software, solutions, and exceptional knowledge and professional services. And so you'll see as I continue to talk today, there's really a combination of services, software, and skill sets that we bring to our clients, and a combination of those that businesses seek out from solution providers like Blytheco. Generally, when we talk about business management software, we look at fitting them into 3 different categories. And this is relative. There's not really any one way, as most of you probably know, to define a business and put it in a slot. But there are 3 general categories we look at. The small business market, okay, which some of you may use some of those pieces of software today in your business classes. Those generally consist of what we call single-use applications. They generally don't integrate the entire organization. Single-use applications like accounting software, even home accounting software such as Quicken, applications that provide email, that provide calendaring, that provide contact management. And generally in the industry, these are businesses with annual revenues of less than $1 million a year. And the publishers of those software that we would all recognize are Intuit, which is Quicken, QuickBooks, Microsoft, which of course is a lot of our Outlook applications, and Sage, which is actually the publisher of Peachtree. And Peachtree actually started here in Atlanta, for those of you that might not have known that. In the medium-size or small, medium-sized enterprise, small, medium-sized business, those are businesses that are a little bit larger, revenues kind of between 1 and 250 million. That's pretty widespread. Okay, we generally refer to those as the SMB or the SME market space. So I may use those during the course of the next 40 minutes and use them interchangeably. I've highlighted that and put that in red because that's my space, and that's generally what I'm going to be speaking to today, is those types of businesses. So the smaller side of the business world. At the higher end, okay, and in the medium size, we find that applications are more integrated. So accounting software takes a broader view in a medium-sized businesses. So it's not going to be just your accounting, but your customer invoicing is going to integrate, and your inventory control is going to integrate. And you'll find that everything throughout the organization flows with the transactions. Terms like customer relationship management software is generally found in the middle market space where it might not be found in the small business market. And then at the higher end, we have the enterprise level. These are business applications that are very extensive in scope and really fit in much larger organizations, generally revenues with 250 million or higher annually. And publishers that come to mind are PeopleSoft, Oracle, JD Edwards, SAP. Okay? So these are much more extensive in scope. One of the terms that's used very widely in the enterprise space is ERP, or Enterprise Resource Planning. That term has actually come down in space into the medium-sized business market as well, as we'll see. And you can see as well that some of these overlap. SAP, Microsoft, they're in different spaces. Sage is in different spaces. And over a period of time, software publishers who started in the very high space have tried to come down market so that they could attract smaller businesses because there are so many of them in the world today. And likewise, some of the companies that had smaller packages that fit smaller businesses are trying to move up into the higher space. So just a little bit of history about computers, again, in small business. Computers really revolutionized the small business. Really starting in the early 80s when the personal computer, or what is commonly known as the IBM PC, or the PC, was affordable and really started to become mass marketed to industry. So before that, small businesses may have had an opportunity to use what we call time sharing on much larger mainframe computers or mini computers, and then it evolved to microcomputers or the PCs. In the very early days in the PCs, and most of you in this room don't look like you probably have ever held a floppy drive in your hand. This is very difficult for me to talk about because I've held a lot of them. We started with 8-inch floppy disks. They're literally floppy, okay? You can kind of, and they had the media on the inside, and you shouldn't rip it open because then all your data would be destroyed. And then we went to a 5 1/4-inch drive. Oh, you remember, showing your age. I'm sorry. And then we went to a 3 1/2-inch floppy, but it actually wasn't very floppy. It got a little bit harder. It was easier to store. And during the course of that time, hard drives, of course, came into being in the PCs. So in the very early days when we used accounting software, we took a floppy drive, and there was only one floppy drive, only one drive to actually put it in. We put the floppy disk in the floppy drive, and up would run the program, and it would be stored in the memory of the computer, Well, then we'd enter some data. Well, we couldn't store the data on the same floppy disk, so we had to take the floppy disk out of the drive, and then we had to put another one back in, and that was our data. And that's how we worked. And I don't know, I know I don't look that old, but and that's how long, that's how quickly technology has evolved. And that's why it truly has been a revolution for small business. So we went from floppy disks to hard drives. With that, disk space increased, the capacity of memory increased, and as most of you know, the capacity, the speed, the processing speed of our computers, the processors have greatly increased. And with that, they've all come down in price. And so it made it much more affordable, not only for us to be carrying around laptops and small computers, but of course for businesses to really revolutionize their business. And what it meant was that manual tasks, things we were all doing on paper, and I remember that as well, now became automated, and you could share data, and you can share information, and you can integrate tasks within companies. One-Write accounting systems, which we used to do on ledger paper, and many of you are probably still doing some homework on ledger paper because that's how we have to understand what accounting is. Okay? It's not as easy to understand when it's just computerized, so you still have to do that. But you're probably using some of the smaller packages in some of your accounting courses today. So those all became automated, and our tasks became integrated. And work actually got a lot more fun. Well, in the early days with small businesses were really bringing computers into their organization, and they were really bringing the technology into their organization. And at the beginning, much of what we were doing was we were putting in computers, and we had limited software to use to automate our businesses. So at that time, we were using technology, and we were sort of adapting our businesses to technology because we only had what we had, and it still made us more efficient and more effective. But over the years, as software and computers became much more capable and available and accessible to small businesses, now we're really able to adapt our software to the way that we do business. So the focus kind of went from technology for technology's sake to where we are today, fast forward, with technology really as a means to an end. And so the focus today is really more, even though it's software and computers, the focus is really more on the business side of things. And we've been able to move from what was very transaction-based, so I'm going to do an invoice, and I'm going to create a journal entry, and I'm going to do a physical count for my inventory, and I'm going to enter it into the computer, to workflow-based. And so now what we think about is how do people and organizations perform those tasks, and then how do we configure the software to how people work, as opposed to configuring how people work to the software. So it's become a lot more flexible. So I want to talk about some concrete examples of what software does for an organization, and then provide some examples about the types of information that these types of packages allow businesses to keep. So if we look at these four categories, we have accounting. Okay, so what do we do with accounting software? And again, these all tend to be integrated in our businesses, particularly in the SMB space as well. So with accounting, we do our financial statements, which comes off our general ledger. We can provide customers with invoices. We can write checks to our vendors. Okay? We can manage inventory and control quantities on hand based on what products that we purchase and what products that we sell. So we can do sales order processing, and we can pack up our products, and we can put them in boxes, and we can ship them out the door and track all of these movements through software. We can also do automatic credit card processing today, right within the software packages. So again, it's the whole flow of business transactions that are now inside the software. In the business management software in the SMB, we have e-commerce software. So I'm sure, how many of you buy things over the internet? It's got to be everybody. I actually let my husband do that for me, but I don't like to work at computers when I'm home. But e-commerce software actually provides businesses with that shopping cart technology so that when you go to a site, you can actually find the products that are available for you to purchase. You can say that you want to purchase them. In some cases, you can inquire as to how many there are. And then you can actually put an order, and as I said just a minute ago, you can put your credit card in, and then it will be shipped out the door and land, at your home, okay? Well, all of those steps are different types of transactions that business management software is providing to you. There's two common phrases in e-commerce, B2B and B2C, which you've probably heard. B2B is business to business, which means I, as a business, will provide you, my customer, the opportunity to purchase something over the web at my website through the internet. That means you need to have a login, because if you're my customer, I know who you are in a business-to-business relationship. B2C is business to consumer, and that's what most of us do on the internet. That means that the company that is selling does not know who you are, but of course they want you to buy their products, and so it allows you to put in all your pertinent information, sometimes create an account, and still purchase goods. And so that's B2C, or business to consumer. So e-commerce, and it's going to be related and integrated to the accounting software. We also have customer relationship management, which is actually my favorite these days, because it really allows us to keep information about our customers, to understand our customers, and continue to understand what we can do to serve them. Commonly known as CRM, lots of acronyms like we have in this world today. What CRM provides businesses is customer service functions, contact management, so we know who we conduct business with, and we can continue to keep that information. Salesforce automation, so businesses know what activities their salespeople are performing, who they're contacting, who their prospects are, who they're communicating with. Marketing, which could include campaign management, communication management, okay, which can be with your customers, vendors, or anyone that you're really communicating with, and document management. So everyone uses Word and Excel, and we're using PowerPoint today. Well, if I'm a small business and I have contracts with my customers or my vendors, those are generally going to be in some type of document. They'll be in a Word document or an Excel document. Well, with business management software, I can take the documents and I can actually store them on the account. So if Clayton State is a customer of mine, okay, and I have a contract, then I can just take that and store it. And anyone else in my organization that may need that information, it's accessible to. So everything's accessible, everything's integrated, everything's automated. And then the last on the slide is human resources. That's very automated today as well, providing software for payroll, for personnel management, and then extend it out beyond that, because payroll, of course, relates to accounting as well, and those are generally integrated. Recruiting, training and development, government compliance, benefits tracking, okay? All of these things are integrated today in the SMB space in particular and above with business management software. So just some other examples of managing information, different types of transactions, different types of information. If I'm in sales, or looking at sales, then we may want to manage different types of prices for our customers. So even when you're on the internet, okay, you may be searching and you may get a different price, or if you're a customer of a company and you go in, you may get a different price than the guy sitting next to you. Okay, all of these software packages are capable of keeping different types of prices based on customer classes, based on customer types, based on promotions. So when you go in and you see that something's discounted, then you go in the next day to buy it and maybe it's not discounted. All of those prices, the dates of the promotions, why it's discounted today and not tomorrow, that's all stored in the business management software that's behind, in this case, that website. Okay? On the financial side, we're certainly managing the general ledger. We're reporting financial results, most importantly. We can track things like, or actually make more efficient, things like the number of days to close an accounting period, which becomes very important in business. We can use our software to forecast cash flows through what sales orders and orders have come in the door, but I may not have shipped out, what purchase orders I have, but I haven't necessarily paid the vendor. So we can do all of that with our business management software. From a customer service standpoint, we can manage whether or not we can provide same-day shipping to someone who has requested our products. And we can, of course, respond much more quickly to customers' inquiries. And actually, a part of customer service and e-commerce as well, very often, is inquiries. So very often when you purchase from a site today, you can probably go back and actually look and see if they've shipped your product, or they'll send you an email. All of this capability is, of course, being managed in the software behind it. Purchasing and inventory control. One of the big things these days, which has definitely continued to revolutionize small business, is being paperless and actually being able to email a number of these documents. And so if you think about the old days when you couldn't buy from the internet and you went into a store but they needed to ship you something and they gave you a piece of paper and then maybe they sent you another piece of paper in the mail to tell you when it was shipped, and everything just took a lot longer. Well, all of that can be done by email today, and everything is just more instantaneous. So invoices, for example, can be generated. We used to have to hit the print button. We don't always have to hit the print button anymore. We can hit a button. We can identify that the customer for this invoice wants to receive it by email, so we can store that in the software. And then when the invoice is generated, the system can email the invoice to the customer. So paperless has actually, just over the last 5 to 10 years, has become more prominent. In customer service, phone systems can actually be connected to the software and automated. We see that a lot in customer relationship management software. So call centers, telemarketing centers, and sales centers. We can be on our software system, and I can go to another record, and I can say, okay, I want to call Ruth Menter, and I can click a button, and the phone will dial, and I'll have my headset on. It's all connected. It's all being driven by software. So when you think about how we used to do things compared to what the capabilities are today, especially for small business, it has just so enabled small business through automation. So some of the different aspects of business management software to think about as well is where the software is housed. So when PCs first hit the marketplace 25 some odd years ago, the software packages were largely installed in the business's offices. So I had my PC, I had my server. Businesses had their own infrastructure, and most still do. And so the software was installed and managed locally at the company's location, on their servers, on their workstations, okay, on their technology. And software licenses, because we actually don't own software, we license software, okay? Software licenses, however, were purchased. And generally today, you still do purchase software licenses. So I make a decision on business management software, I put it in my business, I own it. That's pretty much it. Hopefully it's deployed properly and it works for me. But moving forward today, one of the buzzwords is SaaS, S-A-A-S, software as a service. And what it does have different connotations, but generally the first part of it is that you don't have to necessarily purchase the software. You can sort of rent the software on a pay-as-you-go model, so you can try it. And so I can say, I have X number of people that need to use this software. I want to use it for 3 months. I'm going to pay X number of dollars a month. Now, in that space, there often are contracts, so you have to do it for a year. You might have to do it for 2 years. But in some cases, it's a smaller less cost of ownership than actually acquiring the licenses. And now, with so much being internet-based, business management software is actually slowly moving to be browser-based, so that you can just be anywhere, okay, anytime software, and access your business management software. So SaaS software can be browser-based, so it can be deployed over the internet. It can also just be pay-as-you-go, and it can be, but not deployed at your location. So if you don't want to hire IT people, and you don't want to have all the servers and have to have people to manage it, it may not be browser-based, but it still could be located, and we call that hosted. So these are kind of the buzzwords, and it's changing the industry actually as we speak. This is a big change in the industry for business management software, and we're still trying to see where it's going to go long term. But it's still software, and it still provides all the functions to businesses and to our organizations that we need. So now I want to transition into, I'm a company and I'm a buyer, and we're going to talk a little bit about what the buyer should be doing, what the cycle is for actually selecting software. And then I want to talk a little bit about what happens once you select it and you go to actually deploy it in your organization. Okay? So this is an interesting list. This is a buyer's top 10 business criteria. Notice it's for the second-time buyer. Most businesses that we work with today are not first-time buyers of business software unless they're a new business, startups. We work with a lot of startups, okay? But even the people in the startups aren't necessarily first-time buyers. They've been working with software in other businesses, okay? So this is for the second-time buyer. So number one is the level of support from the reseller, okay? You'll hear different phrases used interchangeably. A reseller, my company, Blytheco, is a reseller. A reseller is a company that's authorized by the software publisher, okay, to sell products from specific publishers. So for example, Blytheco is exclusively a Sage reseller. So we sell all products from Sage software. You'll hear the phrase reseller used interchangeably with VAR, which we mentioned in my intro. VAR is actually value-added reseller. That's still a reseller, okay? We like to use the term solution provider, okay, because we feel that we're providing much more than software. We're providing a total solution for a business. So solution provider is used interchangeably as well. In the old days, the software publishers used to call us dealers. And from day one, I was not for that, and just for a lot of different connotations. And I still see it in writing, and I see it in different places. But again, we work with businesses, and that's really the value that organizations that are resellers bring, is to really help the businesses succeed. Yes, through business management software, but as I said earlier, it's technology as a means to an end. It's not just about the technology. So level of support from the reseller. Number two is the software publisher's track record for performance. Okay? Software publishers are all sizes. There's Sage, which is a billion-dollar company, and obviously Microsoft and SAP, they're all billion-dollar companies. And then there are very small companies that write software, in many cases specific to industries, okay? And so software, the performance of the software can be looked at as how many customers do they have on this software? Do they have one, or do they have 10,000? Or in the case of like a Peachtree software, do they have 1 million? Okay, well that kind of says something. If 1 million businesses are using this software, well, I mean, it probably works. Whether or not it's right for my business is different, but track record of the software publisher. Number three, the software's ability to fit the business. Well, that's critical, and we'll talk a little bit more about how we look at what the business's requirements are before we go out and purchase software. The growth and the scalability, the potential of the software. So if I'm a small business, but I'm going to grow, I want to see if I can purchase software that can grow with me. Number five is the price of the software. And again, that can be a SaaS model. It could be a rent-to-own, pay-as-you-go, or it could be license purchases. Number six is the quality of the documentation. And this is actually kind of a fun one, because today in business management software, the documentation's in the software. You really don't get anything when you buy it. You get your drive, you get your CD, and you put it in, and all the documentation is typically in the software. In the old days, we used to get user manuals. And so when someone bought a $10,000 piece of software, they got a box, and it was heavy, and it had manuals, and it had the software in it. Today they get a really little box. And that was quite a transition for small business, and a transition for people working on the software. And again, as time has moved on, people have gotten accustomed to help files online and also user manuals online. But many of the software packages allow you to print them out so that you can kind of still have that hard copy. I still like to see things in print myself. This number seven is the functionality of the software. That speaks for itself. What does it do? What can it do for my business? Number eight is ease of use. Number 9 is ease of implementation, which we'll talk a little bit more about. And number 10 is, does the software work with the existing hardware? That's kind of a no-brainer now, okay? Hardware is hardware. Any software that's going to be made for business today is going to work on the standard platforms that are available to businesses. Now, next to each of those, I have another number. That number represents the list for the first-time buyer. And so that was a number of years ago, okay? So this is really interesting. And if you look at a few of those, particularly number 1, which is the level of support from the reseller, what are you going to do for me when I buy the software from you, was number 8. And so you can tell that in the early days, and you know, it may be business owners and controllers and CFOs, particularly with accounting and business management software, okay, we'll bring this in, we can put it in our business, we can make it work. Well, that really tells us that they really need a little help from the experts, because if I put software in my business one time, I've done it once. If businesses use a solution provider or a reseller, they've done it tens of times, dozens of times, hundreds of times. They know all the nuances in the system. So businesses learn that maybe they really should seek what we call consulting and professional services from other organizations. So that's interesting. Number 2 is also very interesting. Number 2 is the software publisher's track record for performance. Okay, that was number 10. Okay, now maybe it was number 10 because some of these packages had not been out as long as they are today, but definitely businesses have changed their opinion and the criteria that they've used for buying. Number 5 is the price of the software. That's interesting. It used to be number 1. Okay, and we can have all sorts of dialogue about whether you should buy anything on price. Okay, we have a story about a television that we recently purchased. Okay, so you can buy things on price, but you really still need to do your comparison shopping and make sure that it fits your needs. In the case of businesses, those can be quite complex. Interestingly enough, number 9 is ease of implementation for the second-time buyer. It was number 2. Okay, so these are fun. I thought this was very interesting. Okay, so why purchase new business management software? Okay, we want to, businesses will go over a period of time, and if they're using software, they may outgrow it, and they may decide it's time for new software. So generally, first off, we want software to automate the tasks in our business. But today, we can also find strategic advantages in our business. Okay, very often, we're going to change software to accommodate our current business practices, but also to adapt to new technologies and technological innovations. Okay, and as I mentioned, many businesses today are second and third time buyers within the same business. So the reasons that they will change: growth of the company. We want software to grow with the company, meaning that the company's basically outgrown the current system. The business processes I mentioned earlier may have changed through an organization. The reason that happens often is because there's been actually a change in the business. So you may have a company that is what we call a distributor. They may buy products and then sell products to their customers. Well, they may decide that they're going to start manufacturing some of those products. Well, that's a whole different business process than buying and selling. And likewise, we've had actually many clients who were manufacturers and then decided they weren't going to manufacture products anymore. They were going to outsource the manufacturing. Big topic of conversation in our economy today. But they didn't then need the manufacturing software. Many businesses may decide that they are selling products that their customers have problems with, and they want to provide service on those products. So that company may actually want to start like a field service part of their business. Well, managing dispatch and field service and have people going to businesses to service products, again, is different. Different types of requirements in the business. So business change is a big one. Eliminate redundancy. Everybody uses Excel in here. Some of us may have used Lotus. Okay, you've got spreadsheets. Well, let's say we're in a business together. There's like 100 people in this room or something like that. I'm not even sure. Let's say we're all in a business together. Okay. Well, we all may be managing part of our work product on our local PCs on a spreadsheet. You have a spreadsheet? You have a spreadsheet? You have a spreadsheet? Everyone has a spreadsheet. None of them are integrated. So we're all doing our work, but they're not integrated. We help many, many small businesses today get rid of the spreadsheets as much as we can and take that information and that data and put it into business management software so it can all be integrated. So eliminating redundancy. Also, many organizations have old custom, what we call legacy systems, that are generally computer programs and software that were written for their businesses. Customized, not off the shelf. Okay, so you can buy off-the-shelf software, put it in, and configure it and make it work, or you can customize. And most of these software programs today can be customized. But many businesses couldn't find the right software for their businesses when they started, and they customized, hired programmers, and wrote software packages. Well, those are outdated. Many of those today, believe it or not, are not in Windows. We still go into businesses, and it's old character-based, DOS-based products, and they really want to come into the 21st century. So that's a very large reason why businesses who've been around for a long time will choose to buy or purchase new business software. Okay, so 7 steps to choosing software. Okay, I'm way behind. Okay, so I'm going to speed it up, okay? 7 steps to choosing software, and then we're going to look at a few steps to implementing software, and then we are done, so that's fine. Okay, so when a business goes out and they want to acquire new software, first of all, they really need to identify the functions that they need in their business, the functions they need to manage their business. They have to take a look at the project, okay? How much do I want to pay for this? What's the budget? How long is it going to take me to actually deploy it in my company? What's the timeline? Do I have personnel and resources to help me do this in my company? I have to then compare those requirements to the software packages that I'm looking at. So in the SMB space, we said there's packages for Microsoft, SAP, Sage, and a number of other smaller publishers all around the country and North America and the world for that matter. I've got to compare my requirements with the software packages and find the right fit. And then I also have to select the right solution provider. And that's a self-serving thing for me to say, but I've been doing this long enough to know that it's really very important for businesses to have services when they acquire software. And businesses should really call reference accounts. Okay, and there's a lot of different aspects to finding the right provider, but when you're buying software, there's generally multiple providers of the software, so you really want to look at both. And businesses should look at both. And consult with the reseller, talk about the project, talk about the goals of what you're trying to accomplish in the business. We want to know why the business is changing software and what they need to accomplish. They need to look at the whole package. And so generally a business will get a proposal from a solution provider with all the facets to the project. The business will want to understand what the implementation plan is going to look like. What's going to be the experience of the business as we put this software in a package? 100 users using new software. That's a pretty complex environment and a pretty complex project, and the businesses really need to make sure that they have the right plan. Once the new software is in, okay, they still need to think about ongoing support and ongoing services. So as this perfect software comes in, it's been deployed for my business, there's always going to be ongoing issues. There are things known as software bugs that sometimes businesses need help with. Businesses will need a new report. They will need to reconfigure software as I said earlier, as their businesses change. And I'm gonna just skip right over this one actually. Okay, it's kind of covered in here. So now the solution provider, okay? I'll talk about the implementation. So the business will also, as I said earlier, needs to look at the implementation plan and hopefully work with their solution provider to actually implement the software. It's important that there's project management because, as I said, whether it's 5 users or 100 users, the effort needs to be coordinated. The right configurations need to be put into the software. People need to be trained, and someone needs to coordinate that. So that's project management, okay? Solution providers should help a business with technical readiness. That's hardware, software, hardware operating systems, and making sure that the software is deployed in the right environment and that things are compatible. Generally, the provider will we'll perform a business process review. It's actually the first step. After a kickoff meeting in a project is the first step that we do. And that is generally interviews in the business that's going to be using this software. We interview managers and users, and we understand the flow of their business. We understand what they're doing with their inventory, their customer invoices, how they ship product out the door, and all of the things that we've talked about today. And then the software has to be configured. Okay? Software today is configurable. Most of the software, all of the software today has, even software you use just at home, has different, or even on your phones, is configurable. There's different parameters. There's different setup options. There's lots of parameters and setup options in business management software that dictate how the software is actually going to work in the business. A good example of that is just the chart of accounts. The structure of the general ledger chart of accounts could be 4 digits, it could be 30 digits, it could be 1 segment, it could be 8 segments. We have to tell the software what we want it to look like. Okay? We have to tell the software for how long we want to keep data, keep customer invoices, keep vendor invoices, keep copies of checks and just general history, and actually financial history. How many years do I want to keep of financial history? These are all parameters in the software. And as I said earlier, you can see that if you do this once, you can kind of learn and maybe understand what it's going to do, but if you do this hundreds of times, solution providers really understand what the impact is going to be of the business. Okay? Very often we convert data. We very often help businesses, small businesses, convert from a QuickBooks or a Peachtree to a larger, more integrated software system. Okay? That's a very technical component, converting data. Once data is converted, we'll generally work with a business to do a conference room pilot. And this is very, very important because what this does is allows the users to perform a day in the life of the company. And this is really the confirmation that the software is going to work for the business, that it's configured properly, and generally we change configurations at this CRP time. And very importantly, end users have to be trained. Okay? So greatest software can be set up perfectly. If no one in the company knows how to use it and how to do their jobs in the software, then it's not going to work properly. So most importantly, to train users how to do their jobs. And then toward the end of the implementation cycle, we make sure everybody's ready. It's kind of like running a race, to be quite frank. Users have been trained, software's been configured, data's been converted. Are we ready? And then literally we decide what day to flip the switch. The go live and the software deployment, okay, when we flip the switch on, we stop using the old set of software, we start using the new set of software, and all the data and all the transactions and all the workflow goes in the new set of software. And then of course afterwards there's always time to wrap up, which I'm about to do, and decide what other phases and what other steps there might be. And very often that's where we look at what customizations need to be done. So just to recap, I didn't hit on these in particular, but clearly every business today uses business management software. Some of the skills that I sort of touched on today, okay, buyers and sellers basically need people with accounting and finance, okay, those sort of technical business skills, if you will, project management, which I mentioned, which is a whole career in of itself. Infrastructure technologies, which is more, more computer and technical driven. Business analysis is very, very important, particularly in the deployment of business management software for creating and changing business processes and procedures, for documenting those for the users when they deploy new software. And there's always custom programming. There are still lots of programmers writing the software out there today.
Time for just a few questions. So, Dennis, I saw your hand coming up.
Yes, my question is, what opportunities exist to work with business management software?
Well, you got that right off my last slide, didn't you? And that's really what I was referring to on the last slide. There are opportunities with business management software from lots of different angles. And there are opportunities at just general businesses that are in any type of industry. We work with lots and lots of different industries. People in those businesses will use software, and users who are most interested in the business analysis side, and depending on where you are in an organization, may actually have the opportunity to contribute to the buying cycle. Okay, and so and again, a lot of the consultants who actually work in my company, and I started from the consulting side. Okay, I was largely using my accounting skills. But I gravitated toward computers just because it was so much fun, and I never really, as I said, wanted to go into public accounting. But we use accounting skills, and my consultants, many of our consultants are CPAs with accounting skills. Now in a solution, and so that's on the solution provider side. So in the solution provider side, there's opportunities to help small businesses, and one of the things that we love about what we do is we're not in just one business every day. We're in lots of businesses every day. And that's the thing that I really enjoyed when gravitating to being a solution provider, is I don't just work in one business, in one department. I'm not just in purchasing, I'm not just in inventory control, I'm not just in accounting. I work with lots of different businesses. So really in all of those areas too, project management, there is Project Management Institute, PMI, where you can, I mean, that is a career in and of itself. Many business management software requires that as well. So there's a lot of different angles there. And even from the marketing side, okay, the customer relationship management software and marketing, these days marketing tasks and campaigns, the results of those, the analysis of those, and then what we do as a result of that in marketing, all of that's actually automated in business management software as well.
Can you provide examples of different uses of business management software in different industries? I know you touched vaguely on it, but maybe you could give some specifics.
I touched on that as well. So thinking about a number of our clients, we have clients who are recruiters, people recruiters. They generally use software to track that information, and they use the accounting software. We have a lot of clients who are distributors and manufacturers. We have a lot of clients who, I have clients who manufacture gloves, and they started their business just selling them to Home Depot. We have clients who are in the service industry, who are engineers and architects. And depending on the specialization of business management software, I didn't go into actually, and that's another answer to his question as well, professional service companies, so companies that just provide service and don't actually provide a tangible product, like recruiters and engineering firms and architect firms. They use business management software. Some of it might be a little bit more specialized. We have, one of my favorites is actually, if you go to Home Depot, has any of you seen the Kids Workshop at Home Depot? Okay, that's actually one of our clients. They use a Sage product, and they sell, they create, design and create, and then manufacture those kits and sell them to Home Depot. So plumbing supplies, electrical supply, really across a whole variety of industries. And again, today, every company uses some type of business management software. Other questions?
One more time. Hey, listen, there's an attendance sheet going down. Please
Oh.
sign that, okay? Because we're not going to have enough time to scan. So just get that piece of paper going down so we can get everybody's name out. I just need your name, all right?
Just
Sorry.
your name, no problem.
Can you expand a little bit on where a company that is looking to purchase business management software should start?
The internet. My top two is actually the internet, really, and business management software in the SMB space evolved out of accounting software. So a business's CPA, or CPAs that they know. So if I'm a business and I'm going to look, I think that's what you were asking, right? Where do I start? Well, definitely the internet. There's a wealth of knowledge on the internet, always, okay? And you will, through Google searches and other things, there are actually websites that you can actually do requirements that will give you a list of requirements and say, what do you need in your business? I need this, I need this, I need this, I need this, and give you some ideas, and we'll sort of take it to solution providers. Your CPA firm is a good one. Other businesses. I know a lot of our clients have come to us because they've asked their customers when they've gone, or asked or talked to their vendors or suppliers. So there's a lot of different resources to find someone and find the software that you need. There was one other question, I think.
Question. How did you pick your business name?
That's actually a good one. I would change it if I could, but sometimes that takes a while. It's actually one of my partner's names. His last name is Blythe, and so it's Blytheco, and it's very difficult. Is that what you were asking? Yeah. So it's not very exciting, and we might want to change it, but over the years, Blytheco was actually made up of a number of companies that merged together. We all were solution providers, and I think we mentioned in my intro that I co-founded McDonald Consulting. McDonald was actually the name of another of my partners. I just never wanted to put my name on the door, I guess. Although occasionally I've regretted that, but there was, I think, did you have a question?
Have you experienced or had customers that are in the temporary service industry that are looking for
In terms of the software or in terms of
the training? I noticed that you said something about the training.
yeah, that's more specialized. And the temp industries, although you touched on something I should mention, we do have recruiting, but we and some of those do temp as well. It's more specialized, and my company actually doesn't service that industry except for their accounting. So we do service some of those. But I should mention, too, in terms of temp companies and jobs, if you get experience with a piece of software these days, or if you're applying for temp or any position really in a business, you're generally going to be asked, what software have you used? So keep that in mind when you're doing resumes, and keep that in mind when you're looking at even temporary and part-time jobs and things, and over the full course of your career, because businesses want to know that. People can learn any software, with the right training and the right aptitude, but if someone's replacing someone in their position, and I, have Peachtree software and they're gone, and I need someone to use it, they might not want to train as quickly. They might want someone with that skill. So it's really important to remember that as you move forward.
Ruth, got one more.
For most of the software for profit-making companies, what software would you recommend for non-profit making, especially churches?
Great question. There is accounting software in particular that's specific to nonprofit, and we at Blytheco we actually represent that. Sage actually has a product called MIP. There's a product out there, but I shouldn't mention the competitors, but there's a product out there called Blackbaud. The general difference, the general ledgers in nonprofit accounting are very, very strong because they allow for what we call dimensional accounting, so that you can do fund accounting and grant accounting. And so they're generally, we have a lot of clients who are nonprofit who don't need that specialization and use the software that's most commonly used in for-profit businesses. But if you do, there are software packages specifically for that. And MIP is actually pretty, not that costly and goes into smaller companies. Great question.
At this time, I'd like to take a little special moment to congratulate and thank our speaker, Ruth, for coming to Clayton State.
Thank you so much.
Just a
I've
little
enjoyed it.
memory of
Thank you.